सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
An elephant lurched down the Grand Trunk Road through Gurugram, the occupants firing at their victims from the armored howdah mounted on its back. From nearby rooftops, villagers fought off the assault by using mortar forged from the rear axle casing of cars. There were swords and spears by the thousand, Superintendent of Police William Pierce recalled in his unpublished memoirs. And even some homemade Sten guns. Every village started a gunpowder factory. Erased from our memory by high-rise buildings and malls, Gurugram and the Mewat region that sprawls to its south had imploded into a macabre carnival of killing during Partition. Whole villages were razed, scores of mosques desecrated, thousands killed or forced on pain of conversion to Hinduism, historian Ian Copeland writes, and many more thousands were forced to flee. For months afterwards, the historian Yasmin Khan records corpses from Gurgaon washed up in the irrigation canal in Mathura. Each of those bodies told the story of how communal politics set fire to a region that had been largely peaceful until then, turning it into a stage for one of the largest ethnic cleansing campaigns in recorded history. The story warns us about something important, that the incendiary politics that led to Gurugram, an icon of India's economic ambitions, could easily set off larger fires with serious consequences for the entire country. Even though Haryana has earned a reputation for enabling the growth of violent Hindu nationalist gangs and vigilantism, the state has long had an excellent record of ensuring tensions do not spiral into large-scale killing. In 2015, the first full year of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's time in office, National Crime Records Bureau data states that Haryana had no murders attributed to religious reasons. The number was the same in 2020, the year Delhi, you'll recall, saw 53 deaths in communal violence. Then, in 2021, there was just a single communalism-related killing. These low numbers are remarkable because of a context of endemic violence. If you look at the data, Haryana registered 3.8 murders per 100,000 population in 2021, the highest across states and union territories after Jharkhand. Likely, the low level of communal killing is an outcome of firm police action. Haryana registered 40 cases for religious and communal rioting in 2021, the fourth highest among states and union territories. The state notably registered 2,253 cases of all kinds of rioting that year, or 7.6 per 100,000 population, and that's also the highest across states and union territories. Put that in a nutshell, and it means getting violent in Haryana might be common, but it'll get you into trouble with the police. The neighboring Mewat belt regions of Alwar and Bharatpur have also been relatively peaceful. 10 people, all Muslims, were killed in Bharatpur, 9 at the hands of police, by the way, after communal violence broke out in 2011. Even though lynchings of Muslims have been reported in Mewat for years, they have not exploded into generalized confrontation between the Hindu and Muslim communities. From the history of 1947, though, we know it takes very little to ignite warfare in fractured societies. Large populations of Meo Muslims had coexisted with Hindus across Mewat for centuries, historian Shail Mayaram has written, often sharing religious and cultural practices. Like the region's Jats, the Meos had repeatedly rebelled against the authority of Delhi. Early in the 20th century, though, the Arya Samaj movement and the Tablighi Jamaat had initiated competing conversion movements across the region, hardening the frontiers of Hindu and Muslim consciousness and setting the stage for partition. Evidence of the strains in Mewat began to emerge as early as 1932, when a Muslim procession led by the Anjuman-e-Khadimul Islam clashed with Dalits headed to inaugurate a new caste temple of their own. 3 people were killed and large numbers of Meo fled across the borders of the state of Alwar into then Gurugram, which was part of British Imperial Punjab. Later that year, tax officers were beaten by a mob of Meo in Tijara. The Maharaja of Alwar responded by burning down the entire village. Alwar's harsh response sparked off an insurrection. Meo villages erected fortifications, cut off roads, and began raising funds to purchase weapons. The British, fearing the consequences of Hindu-Muslim warfare would spread into their territories, agreed to help Alwar. There were, however, terms and conditions. The houses of Alwar and later Bharatpur were forced to hand power over to British administrators. Even though imperial administration brought some level of development to the region, the communal problem continued. In 1937, Muharram processions refused to accept police-decreed routes. In one case, Muslims insisted on marching past a disused mosque which had been converted into a Bhairo temple with official permission. Hindu groups also fanned the flames, insisted on holding a Bhairo Mela or fair during Muharram, which had never happened before. Fanatical in their personal caste and religious observances, the new regents of Alwar and Bharatpur cultivated ties to the Hindutva movement in an effort to expand their power and thus push back against imperial domination. Educated at an elite boarding school in England and just 11 years old when he became king, Maharaja Brajendra Singh of Bharatpur was possessed of arrogance matched only by his indolence. I must have committed some very slight sin in my previous incarnation, Copeland records him saying, for instead of remaining a god, I have been sent back as a Maharaja. The Maharaja, and I quote, treated his subordinates like an oversized prep school bully and had indiscreet homosexual affairs with members of the household infantry. Francis Wiley, a senior colonial civil servant, described Tej Singh of Alwar in pretty similar terms. I quote, petty-minded, greedy both for money and power, and a prig. The opinion was shared across the anti-British political spectrum by 2B Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, who believed Tej Singh was a, and I quote, paranoiac. As imperial authority waned in the 1940s, the British drew back, and the rulers of Alwar and Bharatpur made their faith a tool to seize back power. Former Congress Chief Minister of the Central Provinces and Hindu Mahasabha leader Narayan Khare arrived in Alwar early in the summer of 1947 to direct the final act of this tragedy. Since 1946, British intelligence had been warning that the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh was holding military training camps across Alwar and Bharatpur with the patronage of the Maharajas. Leaders of the Muslim League had also made an appearance, arguing for a Meo state which would ally with Pakistan. Like cow protection vigilantes operating in Mewat today, the militia operating under the flags of the Hindu Mahasabha and the RSS appear to have attracted significant numbers of lumpenized youth who use their newfound power to loot, extort, and rape. Hari's memoirs suggest that the massacres began with a series of small communal skirmishes which escalated into fighting between Alwar state forces and the Meo community. Later, Mayaram's interviews with survivors show state forces engaged in large-scale massacres of Muslims. In other cases, Meo was spared in return for embracing Hinduism, though many of those who did convert later gave up their faith and escaped to Pakistan. From census data gathered by Copeland, it is clear that an epic ethnic cleansing took place. Alwar's Muslim population, which had been 26.2% in 1941 and 19.2% of Bharatpur, dropped after the pogroms, conversions, and flights to 6% in both states. Tens of thousands of the survivors of the killing limped across the border into British India, beginning the long and dangerous journey to Bhavalpur in Pakistan. Tens of thousands more congregated in what was then the Punjab district of Gurgaon and its Muslim majority urban centre New. Large numbers of New families are descendants of the survivors of the 1947 carnage. Khare would eventually be investigated by the British Imperial States Ministry for his role in ordering Alwar forces to engage in genocide and the destruction of mosques. The allegations against him, which were also followed by claims that he was involved in the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, were ever proved. The investigation into the partition violence went nowhere. Later, in 1952, Khare was elected to the Lok Sabha from Bharatpur. For his part, Maharaja Bijendra Singh was also elected to the Lok Sabha as an independent candidate. Tej Singh of Alwar retired to his palace in Delhi, Alwar House, and after 1948 was rarely seen in public. The Maharajas never got the Hindu state they hoped for, nor the Mayo Muslim Pakistani province. The Maharajas didn't wield significant power in independent India. Among the greatest achievement of the states which have governed the Mewat region was healing the wounds of 1947 and ensuring that tensions did not flare into large-scale violence. Remember, this wasn't true everywhere. Cities like Mumbai, Delhi, even Ahmedabad, which was scarred by partition, saw violence for many years after independence. The prosperity of the Gurugram-Delhi belt, as well as the emergence of towns like Behrod and Bharatpur as industrial hubs, can be traced to this hard-won stability. That triumph, though, is now in peril, and that should make us all very worried. I'm Praveen Swami, and I'm National Security Editor of ThePrint. Thank you again for watching Security Code.